Welcome to Sheikh Hamdan's Fans official channel, where we bring you the most heartfelt moments, unseen glimpses, and poetic confessions from His Highness Sheikh Hamdan bin Mohammed Al Maktoum, Crown Prince of Dubai. Today, we're honored to present something extraordinary. A few days ago, His Highness shared a deeply moving poem on Instagram, one that echoed the sound of love, devotion, and royal vulnerability. In this special presentation, we unveil the English translation and bring you an exclusive romantic story inspired by that very poem. Stay with us, as we walk the golden path of love, honor, and revelation. It was a night carved from the soul of the desert, warm, infinite, and rich with the scent of oud and jasmine. The stars hung like diamonds scattered across the heavens, and in that stillness, I first saw you. You weren't just a guest among royals, you were a force that disrupted time itself. My breath paused. My heartbeat faltered. And though the palace courtyard bustled with elegance and chatter, in that moment, there was only silence between you and me. A silence louder than any sound I had ever known. You were wearing ivory, simple, yet you wore it like a crown. Every movement you made stirred something ancient within me. I was a prince accustomed to grace and beauty, but your presence felt like destiny had written a new story for me. You weren't just a beautiful woman. You were a mystery the desert wind whispered about, one I was willing to chase beyond the ends of my kingdom. That moment, our first glance, was the beginning of everything I never knew I needed. That night, I didn't approach you, not because I didn't want to, but because I knew the moment I spoke to you, I'd never be able to walk away. I watched from afar, memorizing the way your fingers held the edge of your shawl, the way you tilted your head when you laughed softly at something the queen said. In a sea of golden gowns and dignitaries, you were the moonlight itself, gentle, powerful, eternal. I returned to my quarters with the vision of your eyes haunting mine. I sat at my writing table, the ink trembling in my pen as my heart poured itself into poetry. She came not as a storm, I wrote, but as rain upon the soul, quiet, needed, and inevitable. That night, I didn't sleep. I walked the palace halls like a man possessed by a dream. And every shadow I passed reminded me of you. Days passed. But your memory remained like a scent caught in the folds of my candora, subtle but overwhelming. I began to ask about you discreetly. Who was she? Where did she come from? But answers were scarce. You were not royalty. Not a diplomat's daughter. You were someone invited quietly, by the queen herself. That mystery only deepened my longing. It was weeks later when we met again. This time, in the royal library, our secret paradise. You were there alone, fingers trailing the spines of ancient books as though feeling their stories. You didn't hear me enter. But I couldn't move. You had enchanted not only my heart, but my silence. For a moment, I let myself imagine what it would be like to speak your name, if only I knew it. Then you turned, and the moment our eyes met again, I knew, I was not just falling. I was surrendering. You smiled, not the smile of recognition, but of quiet politeness. And I, a man of words and courage, found myself unable to speak. How are you? I finally whispered. You replied, I am fine, with the grace of someone who belonged to every poem I had ever written. I asked about your favorite book. You answered with the name of an old Arabic love story. They say lovers are written in the stars, you said. But what if the stars rewrite themselves when two hearts truly see each other? I wanted to tell you that you had just rewritten the constellations of my life. But instead, I just smiled. That day, I stayed in the library long after you left, inhaling the air you had touched. Our meetings became more frequent, always accidental, always fated. A garden walk. A shared prayer. A silent moment during a charity event. You never asked for attention, never sought the limelight. Yet the world bent around your presence. And I, once a prince driven by duty and destiny, became a man who counted the hours until he could hear your voice again. I began to pen poems in secret. Love letters addressed not to a woman, but to a soul I recognized more than my own reflection. I didn't know how to tell you. Would you believe me if I said a prince had fallen for you, not as royalty, but as a man aching to kneel before something greater than a throne? One night, I sent you a poem anonymously. Slipped through the pages of the book you borrowed from the palace library. My queen, I write not from a place of power, it read, but from surrender. From the ache of seeing you and knowing my heart will never belong to another. The next time we met, you said nothing. But there was a softness in your eyes. A secret smile that told me you had read my soul. I began to dream of you. Not just in sleep, but in moments between state meetings and royal duties. I would see your face in the glint of the sea, hear your voice in the call to prayer, feel your warmth in the desert sun. I was becoming undone, and I loved it. You had awakened the human in the prince, the poet in the leader, the lover in the warrior. The palace began to notice. My family asked questions. Whispers circled. But I remained silent. Not out of fear, but reverence. Love like this was not to be spoken of lightly. It deserved the poetry of patience. The art of trust. I knew, when the time was right, I would reveal you to the world. But first, I had to reveal my heart to you. Then came the night of the royal gala. Lights, opulence, orchestras. And you, invited not as a guest, but as my honored companion. I took your hand as we stepped onto the marbled floor, and the world hushed. Every camera flashed, but I saw only your eyes. Are you ready? I asked. I've always been, you whispered. And in that moment, the world knew what my heart. I am exposing everything. Every breath I took in your absence. Every prayer I whispered in the quiet of dawn. Every verse that carried your name like a crown of roses on my heart. You are not just the love of my life. You are the reason my life means love. Let the world hear this. Let history record it. I, Sheikh Hamdan, have known many titles, prince, leader, poet. But none greater than this, your beloved. From the moment we first met, you changed everything. And now, I give you everything, my name, my truth, my forever. The days after our revelation felt like something out of a forgotten fairy tale, only this time, it was true. Every morning began with your name on my lips, every evening ended with your laughter echoing in my mind. Even the royal guard began to notice a change in me. I walked lighter, spoke softer. And when I held your hand in public for the first time, I felt more powerful than I ever had wielding a sword or leading a nation. Because loving you was the purest act of courage I had ever known. There were moments when I feared the weight of the world would try to come between us. Politics, tradition, expectations, they all loomed like ancient shadows over our new dawn. But you never faltered. You stood beside me not as someone seeking a position, but as someone defending love. Your silence in the face of judgment, your grace in every storm, it taught me that true queens don't wear crowns for the world to see, they carry them within. One evening, we escaped the city. No entourage. No titles. Just you, me, and the endless stretch of the Arabian desert. The sands felt sacred under our feet, the stars burned like witnesses above. We built a fire, shared stories, and you played with the falcon on my arm like it was a pet, not a symbol of legacy. That night, I didn't feel like a prince. I felt like a boy who had found the woman he would spend his life writing poems about. I remember your words that night. If all this disappeared tomorrow, the palace, the titles, the wealth, would you still choose me? I looked at you, moonlight bathing your face, and answered with a truth I had buried deep. You are the only part of my story I never want to rewrite. Without you, the crown would be a cage, and in that silence that followed, I saw tears glisten in your eyes. Not of sorrow, but of knowing. In the months that followed, our love grew, not in grand gestures, but in the quiet. In the way you placed your hand over mine during council meetings. In the way I waited for your nod before making difficult decisions. You were not behind me, you were beside me, always. And in your presence, I became more than a ruler. I became a man who understood what it meant to live for someone else's heartbeat. Poetry became our language. Not just the verses I wrote for you, but the way we lived, intentionally, beautifully, vulnerably. You would write little notes in the margins of my journals. I would leave flowers in your prayer room. We learned each other's silences, honored each other's rhythms. And slowly, the palace transformed, not in architecture, but in energy. Love, it seems, changes everything it touches. One morning, as we watched the sun rise over the city from the balcony, You placed your head on my shoulder and whispered, "I'm scared." I turned to you, surprised, and you continued, "Scared that this is too perfect. That the world won't allow something this beautiful to last." I took your hand, kissed your fingers gently, and said, "Even if the world crumbles, my love for you will remain. Written in every poem, every breath, every legacy I leave behind." There were challenges, of course. Not all understood our bond. Some questioned your place. Others doubted your intentions. But what they didn't see was the countless hours you spent working quietly for the good of the people, the children you taught in secret, the orphanage you built under a different name. You were not just my queen. You were the soul of my reign. And I would go to war with the world to protect you. One day, in the garden where we first met, I knelt, not in ceremony, not in tradition, but in devotion. I didn't offer a ring. I offered my heart, again. Will you continue walking beside me, not as royalty, but as my equal, my partner, my forever? You nodded, and that nod held more power than any royal decree I had ever signed. Time passed. Seasons change. But my love for you remained a constant river, deep, wild, and unstoppable. Even as responsibilities grew heavier, your presence kept me grounded. You became the bridge between my two worlds, the one of ancient expectations and the one of poetic freedom. And because of you, I learned to walk both paths with honor. When I held our first child, I looked into their eyes and saw you. And something within me shifted once more. The love I had for you deepened, multiplied, became sacred in a way even poetry couldn't reach. You had given me not just love, but life. And in that moment, I vowed again, not just to protect you, but to protect everything you brought into this world. We danced again one evening, just the two of us, in the grand hall of the palace. No music played. Only the sound of our breath, the rhythm of our love. I whispered the first poem I ever wrote for you, and you wept. Not because you were sad, but because you remembered. Because we still held sacred what so many forget with time. The beginning. The spark. The first glance. Even now, as I sit in my writing room, pen in hand, I think of that night. Of you in ivory. Of the way your eyes met mine and rearranged my destiny. I have traveled the world, sat with leaders, read volumes of ancient wisdom, but the greatest truth I've ever known was in the way you said my name that night. Like it was yours to keep. So here I am. Years later. Still writing. Still loving. Still yours. My queen, I am exposing everything. Every word etched into the pages of my journals. Every prayer whispered under breath. Every moment I chose you when the world asked me to choose tradition. I chose love. I chose us. Let them write what they will in history books. Let them tell tales of rulers and riches. But somewhere, buried in the heart of this city, I hope someone finds our story. A tale not of power, but of poetry. Not of conquest, but of devotion. And may they know that once, a prince loved a woman so deeply, he gave her not just his